Hi, welcome to my blog. My name is Tom Shue, and today we're going to do part 2 of our texture selection and apply to a mask. Actually, this is going to be an overview of how this cover was designed, and we're going to continue to refine the front images, and basically I'm going to show you how all this comes together as a complete project. Okay, so we know we're going to have a rear image. That's the rear image for the back cover, and we're going to have a front image for the front cover. So that's kind of how everything's going to be laid out and how everything's going to work. I'm just going to turn those off for now. Okay, and we're going to work with the back texture first. So I showed you before, if you grab your Marquee selection tool and you drag out, you can make sure that nothing goes past that selection. Whatever you apply or fill in will stay directly inside those marching ants, and if you invert it, will stay on the outside. Well, that's the basis of control of laying out anything inside Photoshop. So you make a selection, you fill it with a color, and you put it on a layer. Okay, so we're going to deselect that. So we're just going to go ahead and start adding elements in. Here's our rear texture. Now, I didn't have to cut it to fit, because when I put the front cover color on, what I've done is I've created colors for the front cover and colors for the back cover, and then I've stacked textures on the colors. So there's my color for the front and the back, and the spine I created another element and did a drop shadow on it to give it like a three-dimensional look, and then I also put a curves tool on it to kind of burn it, so then when I put text in there, it's going to kind of stand off and look like a three-dimensional binding. And then on the back cover, we know that we went ahead and we put a layer mask on, and I showed you how to make that texture selection and apply that to a mask. So if we enable that, we can see that there's the texture cutting through that leather. So when we turn on this image, this is what we'll see. And if we zoom in, you can see that there's still texture applied here. You can still see there's leather binding there. So that's kind of overlaying on the image and giving it that texture feel in the image. Okay, and then we've got some more effects that are going to go on the outside here, but those are just the inner elements of the rear cover. Okay, and then we put a year on there. We're not done with that. And okay, so now what we want to do is zoom back out, because we've also have some textures to go here, and we have a divider strip. Here's the divider strip, and the divider strip also has drop shadows. You can see under the FX, if we go to this FX tab, we can put our stroke and our drop shadow to make that stand off, and we're going to apply some brush effects on that as well. Okay, we've got the book spine. This was the texture that I used to make my selection for the rear frame. Okay, and now this is the back texture. So if you look here, you'll see that that's that wallpaper texture that I showed you from the first one. However, we haven't applied a blend mode to it yet. So I've got it here marked as hard. So it's going to be a hard light. So I'm going to go here, hard light. Ooh, Control Z, we don't want that. We want that normal. We're going to go down and make sure we're on the proper layer for this back texture. So we need to select it and choose hard light. We didn't make it visible. And this is going to be hard light. And this one here, we're going to do it as an overlay. Okay, so, and we need to drag the opacity down on these to around 30 or so. I'm not real picky at this point. I'm just trying to show you what we're doing here. So there's 30 there. And when you, actually the top one was supposed to be hard light or overlay. And the bottom one's supposed to be hard light. Okay, so the opacity needs to come up on 30 there. Alright, around 30. And now our front cover, if we turn that texture on, we need to come up here and apply. This one is going to be overlay. So you can see through onto the color. And we need to drag the opacity down, because I don't want it to be a predominant element. So around 30. And in this next one, we'll turn it on. And this one's going to be hard light. Okay, hard light, and we're going to bring the opacity down to around 30. Okay, and maybe need to come down a little bit more. Alright, now you've noticed that I've applied some masks over here. In order to apply a mask, it's real simple. We can delete this mask by dragging it down here to the trash can and delete. And if we want to apply a mask, you just apply the mask. It's that simple. Now what we have to do is we have to make a selection so this will cut through and show this image underneath. Okay, so there's our image, and since those are in overlay modes, we can see it pretty easily, but we don't want that texture to be applied to that image. Okay, we want to get rid of that texture. So this is where these masks are going to allow us to do. So what we'll do is we'll zoom back out to get this to fit the screen a little bit better. Okay, we're going to grab our Marquee selection tool with this mask selected. This is just going to be a one-time deal. We're going to go down here and we're going to drag a selection, and inside that selection we're just going to fill it with black. Okay, and that's going to hide the mask. So we'll go to our paint bucket tool, which is right here, and we're going to paint with black, and we dump right there, and that gets rid of that. We'll select the other mask because there's texture there, and we'll dump the bucket there, and now we've created a cut through of those layers. Okay, so the next one I want to do is, you notice how I've stacked textures. Okay, so I want to apply some border effects onto this image. Okay, and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to apply a white sheet over the whole thing. Okay, and then I'm going to apply a layer mask to it. So there's our mask. We need to go select that layer. And what I did is I just made a Marquee selection for the front cover to make this layer here, this white one. I just grabbed my selection tool and I just grabbed here and I started and I just filled it with white on a new layer. Okay, that's how I created that. And now we're going to put a mask on it. So there's our mask, but I want it to be all black, so when I paint with it'll come back white. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just grab the bucket tool with black selected and we'll just paint black. Now what will happen is when I zoom in, if I grab my paintbrush tool, I can go in with my fancy brushes that I have. We'll grab our brush tool and we're going to select a brush. Here's our brush menu. We can select it here, and I can grab, say, some of these dry brush textures, say maybe like this one here, double click it. No, let's choose a different one. Maybe let's try this one here. Okay, and now I can paint some borders in. You see how one side's got like a straighter edge to it than the other? So I can do a dry brush painting in white with white. We need to invert it with white, and I can let that white texture come through the bottom. Now if I'm not happy with that, I just Control Z it, and I can choose a different brush because I haven't done any of this yet, so bear with me. Let's find a brush together. Maybe let's try this brush. Okay, great. It's got a straight edge on it, so I'm going to stay right there on that frame, and I'll just apply that dry brush. Control Z to undo. If I need to size my brush up or down, I can make it smaller, and I can just apply it here. And then if I want to flip the brush around so that straight edge is on the bottom, what I do is I come over here to my brushes, and you see this little guy here? This will invert my brush so it's upside down and on the other side. I need to go a little bit more. If you hold down the shift key, it will stop at increments. So that's 180 from where it was. So if I come down here, I can apply that same thing there. Okay, so now I can start building this dry brush. So I can come over here and stop at the top. Actually, this one will be to the bottom, and I can hold down my Control Alt, and that's Command Option on the Mac, and resize this brush until it fits the width the way I want it. Maybe a little bit wider. And I can start adding in a nice frame. So I need to invert the brush all the way over, so I'll hold the shift key and turn this. It will just go in increments and won't just freewheel, and I'll be at the top. Okay, so there's kind of like a dry brush frame. Maybe we need to add some more of the corners at the bottom. So what we'll do is we'll switch it to the side and we'll shrink it, And maybe I need to... There's no exact science to this. Maybe I want to choose a different brush altogether. So I'll close this down. Maybe I want to do a fancy corner on it. Okay, or maybe a cool flower. Well, let's take a look. Let's see, I've got all kinds of cool patterns here. Just trying to find something that might look neat coming out of that corner. Maybe we could do some of these flowers at the bottom. This is kind of cool, so we'll just size this down. And we'll rotate that the same way as we did before. We'll just grab this until it fits the way we want. And if I need to resize it, I can bring it up. Okay, maybe I need to rotate it just a little bit more. And there's a cool flower there. And maybe we want to put another one on the other side so we can flip it. No, we don't want to flip it that way. We want to flip it this way. We want to rotate it around the other side. Maybe we don't want to flip it. Sometimes it just takes a little while of messing with it to figure that out. So flip X. There we go. It's pointing the other way. Now we just need to rotate it a little bit away. Not so much. Okay, so we'll apply that little brush, that little flower there. So we got that cool effect. So let's look at a couple more brushes here. And you know, this is up to you to get as creative as you want. So you just load up the brushes however you see fit. Here's some cool corner pieces. We're going to be building out of the corners, so let's find something that might look unique to come out of that corner. Maybe like this guy here. Okay, so let's see. We got a picture. This is zoom it down. Maybe like that, but turn some. Turn it some more. And some more still. I'm working with a mouse right now, so bear with me. That's kind of a unique design, and let's flip it this way and rotate it around to this other corner. I believe is where it needs to go. No. Just needed to go to that corner. And we'll get the exact opposite there. And as you can see, we can start to build some cool stuff. Let's find something else that we might want to work with. These little elements, they're just really neat. But you have to remember, you have to paint into the white area, and there's nothing white in the center of the image. So you just kind of have to play with it and see what you come up with. Now I'm looking for a centerpiece for the top. Let me close this. I'm looking for something to go up in this area that's kind of neat looking. That's not going to look too gaudy. Okay, so it might be something like this guy here. Okay, we could just size this up, and it may or may not look right. Nope, I don't really like that. Control Z. And I'll pause this video and we'll come back and I'll show you what I end up with. Okay, so I found this brush that I'm going to use to finish up this border, and I'm not want to get too gaudy. Okay, so we'll grab our brush tool, and what I'll do is where I have thin areas inside this dry brush area, I'm going to add this little border here, and what it is, it's like a grunge brush with some foliage. Okay, with some little leaves and stuff, kind of fills in that area. So now we need to add it down over here probably. So we need to get our brush pulled up so we can flip it, do some things with it. Actually, going to grab this one here, and we'll just try to flip it around. Actually, we're going to flip it on the Y-axis. Now you see that it's kind of curved out. So we flip it the other way. See, it's bowed in. We want it to bow out. We want to stay consistent and bow everything out. So we want to change the size. We just come over here in this area that's kind of not filled in with that dry brush effect, and we'll just add this guy in there. Maybe that's not a good spot. Control Z, and we'll come up here a little further. We don't get on that flower. Okay, and we'll apply it there. Maybe see how that looks. Control Z, and this is just something you just have to keep playing with till you're happy visually. Nope, I don't like that. Maybe somewhere right in there. I think I'm going to have to resize that one. So I'm just going to rotate this and do the top and the bottom, and I'll come back to that size because I've got a flower element, and this looks like it's going to be at the bottom. So we're going to come over here to this side. I need to rotate it a little bit more to get it parallel to the frame. Okay, so somewhere around in this area. Maybe something like that. Nope, Control Z, I'm going to go a little deeper on the frame. There we go, I like that. And let's flip it this way, and let's come in here with it. Maybe like right there. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. And now we're going to do that one last one down here where I resize it. So let's get it flipped to where we want. I think I need to go this route a little bit more. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to resize it down just a hair, just so I'm not in those flowers as much as. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I like the way this looks. Okay, so let me close this. X right here, grab our move tool, and let's zoom in and look at the detail at 100%. That's 50%, 60, and 100. So you can see that this is a really nice image border with lots of detail that she'll be happy with. And we'll go ahead and finish painting out the cover to give it some blue color and some texture. So yeah, that's the image border selected on a layer mask. So it's 2 stacked textures to create the background, and I can change the color. You know, if we don't like the green, it's real easy to change this green. You know, if we ever want to do something with that, we could just grab, say, maybe a hue adjustment, hue saturation, and we click colorize, and we can change the color to whatever we want of those green colors. So maybe if we want to go to a pink. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. And again, we don't have to stay with that one color, and obviously we have to go ahead and make a selection when we apply this hue saturation so it stays within. So we don't have to stay right with that green color. Okay, but I kind of dig in the green color. So I'm going to call this part 2 done, and then I'll finish up with the final part 3 tomorrow with the finished album. Okay, so I want to thank you all for visiting my blog today. Until next time, we'll see you soon.